about the possession. It's about the heart. It's about what takes precedence in our lives. And Christ knew that, especially with the rich young ruler, that his possessions took a higher precedence than Christ did. As we can see, because the rich young ruler turned away and he was not willing to go the next step with Christ. Minimalists in general have all sorts of worldviews, many who are not Christian. You have minimalists who are Buddhist, you have minimalists who are atheists, you have minimalists who have all sorts of beliefs. But I do love how the principle behind minimalism really flows well with these messages that we have come in from the Bible. Minimalism is not a moral issue. You're not a sinner if you're not a minimalist. That is not whatsoever what I'm implying. But I am saying that there is some congruence that we can learn from the minimalist mindset to enhance our walk with Christ. So, what is the principle of minimalism? There are several views, but here's one. Minimalism is intentionality in the way that you live. It's living without an obsession with material things or an obsession with doing everything. It is striving to remove the distraction of excess, making room for what you truly value. So this is the principle that runs everything in minimalism. You can read different blogs and you'll find it explained different ways, but this, I believe, kind of sums up a lot of the viewpoints on minimalism. And it's good to focus on the principle rather than a list of do's and don'ts, because minimalism is very flexible and it looks different on different people. Some people who are minimalists do live in tiny homes. Some people actually live in large homes, but the principle is what matters and the guiding of that principle. So an illustration, imagine with me that you are in a room with all of your best friends, whether that be one person or 5 people, however many best friends you have, you're in that room with them. They're all the people that bring you joy. Take a moment to kind of grasp that joy. Like maybe think of a moment where that's actually happened and remember the joy that that brought you. And this is even has more meaning because most of us are kind of locked in our houses at this point. So we don't get to see our best friends every day in person or every week. We don't get to see many people for that matter. Now imagine that you're planning a get together at your house. Maybe it's a dinner or a birthday party, whatever it may be, you're planning something. Would you prefer to have your best friends, those best friends that were in the room with you at the beginning, would you prefer to have them over? Or would you prefer to have a room full of people over, like a room so full that you actually don't even see your best friends the whole evening because you're talking to someone, they're talking to someone, and you just never run into each other? Which would you prefer? I know I'm an ambivert who leans a little bit more towards introversion than extroversion, and so that answer is easy for me. Maybe people who are extremely extroverted would have a different answer, but for me, I would definitely I would value being able to spend time with my best friends rather than having a ton of people and not being able to see them. And this is kind of what minimalism is like. We often have so many things in our homes, be it possessions. We have so many things on our calendars, such as events. We have so many files on our desktop computers and tabs on our internet. I know that sometimes I can be guilty of the internet tabs. We have so many things that we don't get to spend time with the things that truly matter to us. There's so many people in the room that we don't even connect with the people who we would like to spend those moments with. It's not always, sometimes it's people, sometimes it's things, sometimes it's activities, sometimes it's topics. Depending on where you are in life, it's going to apply in a different way. So again, the reason why we look at the principle rather than just do's and don'ts, because do's and don'ts are just going to fall apart if you have a different situation. So the pros and cons to minimalism. You can see the list has a very different size. Pros, it's lower in stress, it's less expensive, you have less debt, you have less cleaning and less maintaining, it's more enjoyable, there's more room for creating, for loved ones, for peace, for doing the things that give you joy. There's more time for getting healthy, it's more sustainable, it's easier to organize, you get to reclaim your time, you get to live in the moment, pursue your passions, discover your missions, grow as individuals, and you have more space to contribute beyond yourself. And these are just a few, these are just a start. The list could go on and on and on depending on what your situation is. When you're able to be intentional about the things that are in your life and you reflect and you're able to remove the things that are not absolute needs, there is a peace that forms and there is a weight that's lifted. A really kind of random example, just the other day, actually last week, I found out that our distance learning teaching was going to be more than just a week or two away from campus. At the moment, we're scheduled to not go back to campus till May 5, I think. And as at the rate things are going, I know things change daily and weekly, so we don't actually know when we get to go back. Long story short, I decided I need to actually set up a desk because sitting on the couch and teaching is not going to cut it. I've had this small desk in my room for a few years and I never use it because of the way it's placed. It was kind of awkward and it just wasn't efficient. And I've known for the longest time that I needed to either move it or get rid of it or do something, but schedule just I haven't been minimalist enough with my schedule to allow that to happen. And so once I decided I needed this office, I took the desk out, set it up out of my room, and then I walked back into my room and I just felt this like weight lifted. It had never really bothered me before. Like I've literally walked past it hundreds of times and I felt fine, but there was this subconscious weight that it was bugging me. And that's going to happen on different levels for different people. I'm the type of person that if things are messy, I have to clean them before I do my work. Otherwise, I can't focus as well. Other people are able to function in chaos. So again, that's where the principle goes in, being intentional about what you need and making space for what you truly value. The only con that I could really come up with for minimalism is that it's countercultural. So our culture here in America, and this might apply differently in different countries. I know I saw a few of you are from Malaysia or Indonesia, so take this with a grain of salt, but I do know that in other countries you have social media and you see what's happening in the US, so that is going to affect you as well, whether you live here or not. Minimalism is countercultural. Here in the US, we're very used to seeing advertisements all the time. It used to just be on TV and billboards, but now we have phones in our hands that constantly have notifications and ads, and our buying habits are being watched so that the specific correct ads come up and all sorts of stuff. So our society is geared to have us purchase more things. The commercials, if you really needed something, usually you would go out and buy it, but we still buy things based off of commercials because it would just be, oh, that might be nice. I know my grandmother is a very good example of that. She's one of those people that likes to buy things from TV, and it's not a good situation. But minimalism is, depending on how serious you take it, is going to affect your life in different ways. For those who decide, for families that maybe decide they're not going to have their children have lots of toys, it may be difficult to explain that to grandparents or to friends for birthday parties or different things like that. And so it could create small rifts there, maybe just be a little awkward. But looking at this slide, I think you can tell that the pros are going to outweigh the cons. The cons, it's just maybe a bit of discomfort for momentary times, but the pros definitely outweigh it. Now, how do we apply minimalism? What areas are we intentional about? What areas can we declutter? Where can we make space for things that are needed? I told you at the beginning that usually when we think of minimalism, we think of like an empty room, and maybe in your bedroom it's just a bed and that's it. But it doesn't have to be that way. For some people, they want it that way, but it doesn't have to be that way. When we look at possessions, I really like this quote that I found by Colin Wright. He's a pretty well-known minimalist. It says, "If you are able to say with absolute certainty, this is important to me, my little ponies are my life, and being involved with them is what makes me want to get up in the morning, you should invest more time and effort in your collection." Now, I don't know how many of you guys know what My Little Pony is, but they're just like little pony cartoon figurines, something that kids would use, something that's silly that most people would say when you're moving into minimalism, like get rid of that, like why would you have this useless toy, right? But the fact is that possessions and objects have different significances for all of us. And so what Colin is saying here is that you don't have to get rid of everything, because the intention, the principle behind minimalism is to create space for the things that you truly value. So with this quote, he's saying, if you truly value My Little Pony, don't get rid of it. Make more time for it. Actually celebrate it more in your life. Because a lot of people say, oh, I can't do minimalism because I have a lot of books that I like, and I have this, and I don't want to get rid of all the things that I like. And minimalism isn't asking you to get rid of things that you like. It's asking you to get rid of the things that you don't need so that you have more time for the things that you value most. Another area where you can apply this is with your devices. Leo Babauta, he's another prominent minimalist. He said, all day long, we're only giving anything a fraction of our attention. We're distracted, we're multitasking, opening multiple browser tabs, checking phone messages, and social media. And so that's something I mentioned a minute ago. It's really easy to let devices and digital things clutter our life. I'm going to talk about in a minute about some strategies there with devices. And the third thing that I want to point out is calendars. Minimalism asks us to reassess our priorities. Spend more time doing what you value rather than saying yes to everything. It's not about being busy. It's about making space for what you value in life. And there's a lot of other areas that you can apply this to, but I definitely wanted to focus in on these three because they've been more impactful for me personally. And there's a lot of areas you can do it in. There's people who have families and they talk about minimalism with their kids, and I'm not in that situation, so I can't necessarily speak to that experience. So for instance, possessions. Just because you use something once does not mean you need it. often it means you can live without it. And when you start decluttering, you feel how light it can make you. You'd be surprised how often you think something is necessary until you remove it, put it into a giveaway pile, and then 6 months later, if it's still there, you probably forgot about it and you're like, oh, maybe I actually didn't need that. And it made more space. You didn't have to reorganize so often. Another prominent minimalist is Joshua Becker, and his story about coming into minimalism was one day he was, it was a long weekend, and so he was at home with his wife and his son, and he decided, hey, maybe a great project is if I clean the garage with my son. Brilliant idea. He said, you know, we could spend time together, get the cleaning done, it's a win-win. So what he does is he starts moving boxes. He has his son there. His son was like, I think around 5. And he took down one of the boxes that had his son's toys in it. He's like, hey, can you organize this box? And he recognized that that was a mistake because, of course, his son just wanted to play with the toys. So he said, Dad, can I go to the backyard and play with these toys? Because now they're transitioning into summer, so it's the summer toys that are coming out, like bats and balls and all sorts of stuff. And he said, well, I kind of wanted you to help me clean, but I guess you can go play. So his son goes to the backyard and plays, and Joshua keeps cleaning his garage. And partway through, he realizes, I'm here cleaning in my garage. I'm spending time in my garage cleaning when my son is playing in the backyard by himself, wishing I was there with him. And at that moment, he realized that he was using his time to organize stuff that he didn't necessarily need, and it was taking time away from something he truly valued, his son. And so it's instances like that where people realize how much stuff and clutter can really bog down their lives. You don't really notice it until you have those moments. An area of possessions that you can downgrade pretty easily is wardrobe. Maybe that's not, some people that's an issue, some people it's not, but there's something called a capsule wardrobe where you're very intentional about what you have and everything kind of goes together. You don't have so much stuff that's mismatched. You're intentional about the colors and the patterns and the fits and all of that. And because you're intentional, you're buying less stuff and you're able to get ready faster because you don't have so much stuff to go through. Those mornings where you're trying to figure out what to wear and you're kind of throwing clothes everywhere, there's a lot less to clean up later because you downgraded your wardrobe. Well, not downgraded quality, but downgraded the amount that you had in it. Something that has been helpful for me in downgrading wardrobe would be knowing about color palettes. So I don't know how many of you guys know about color palettes, but you can look it up on the internet based on your hair color, your skin tone, your eye color, those types of things. You have a specific color palette, like certain colors that fit you well, that look good on you, that you feel good in. And I can't remember when I found out about color palettes. I think it was probably like, I don't know, 4 years ago. And I read about it, and then I went to my closet and I looked in my closet and I said, oh my goodness, the things in my closet that I never wear were all things that were outside of my color palette. And I realized that I naturally gravitate to the clothes that I feel complement my hair color, skin tone, whatever. Also clothes that fit a certain way, clothes that fit well versus a shirt that maybe, oh, I like the color of the shirt, but the fit isn't that great, but it's okay, I like the color. When you're creating a capsule wardrobe, you're keeping items that you love, things that you love everything about them, and you are intentional about having them. You're not just throwing random stuff in there that's going to sit in your closet. So after I found out about color palettes, I took all the things out of my closet that did not match my color palette, and I vowed to myself that I would never buy anything that was outside of my color palette again. And I think I've done pretty well. I think maybe I have one thing that's outside of my color palette just to mix it up once in a while. but it's really easy to get ready in the morning. Almost everything matches. Now, I probably don't have the same amount of clothes that maybe every minimalist would. There is something called Project 333, which is where people take this challenge for 3 months to only wear 33 items of clothing. That includes like shirts, pants, dresses, and shoes. And I think maybe accessories. So some people take that challenge, and it really helps them to realize how much they can do with just a few clothes. So if your closet is actually something that you have an issue with, I would encourage you to try something like that. Even if it's just for a week or 2 weeks, just to get that experience of reminding yourself that you don't need everything that you have, that you can survive with less. Again, minimalism is a principle, so it's not going to look the same for everyone. I definitely do not just have 33 pieces of clothing, and that's okay with me. But I also do like paring down my closet. I used to, actually, I've always been kind of really into thrifting, and I used to buy just random stuff that I was like, well, this is good for this. It's not perfect, but it's okay. Maybe I'll fix it later. Maybe I'll like tailor it or something, and then it just never happened, and it would sit in my closet, and it would take up space. And so along with purging my closet of things that were not in my color palette, I started to purge my closet of the things that I was only wearing once or twice a year, things that I kind of liked but was kind of like about, until I really started getting into things that I really liked. And you know, it cut down the size of my closet to a pretty good size, and again, I felt that weight just lifted, and I felt like I could breathe. It was a really good feeling. So I would encourage you guys to try that. Also, get rid of unnecessary duplicate possessions. Unless you are, I don't know, like you have a lot of dinner parties. No, actually, I don't think anyone needs 14 sets of dishes unless you have galas at your house with over 14 tables of people. And I guess I shouldn't tell you what you need, because you are you and I am me. But 14 sets of dishes can be excessive. On the day-to-day, you probably need half of one actually, depending on how many people live in your house. So getting rid of the excess is going to clear a lot of clutter. And again, it's not just about storing things away. Like maybe, oh yeah, I'm just going to keep 1 set of dishes in my house, and then the other 13 sets I'll put in the garage. That is like a Band-Aid. That's not going to cure the problem. With minimalism, you actually get rid of those other sets, because if you put them in your garage becomes a place you don't want to go. It becomes a place stacked with all the things that don't fit in your house. It becomes a nightmare. And you still have that weight on your shoulder because you know that your garage is a nightmare. And don't feel bad if your garage is a nightmare right now, because a lot of people's garages are nightmares. Christine Platt, she's known as the Afro Minimalist. She said, it's not a deal if you don't need it. Some people are really into bargain shopping, and it's like, well, this is on sale. Like, I should get it because it's on sale. Such a great deal. But she reminds you, it's not a deal if you don't need it. If you get it just because it's on sale and introduce it to your house, a house that doesn't need that object, you're just creating clutter in your house and you're creating more weight. There's a lot more I could say on possessions. If you specifically are interested in that portion of minimalism, there's tons of blogs, and I'm gonna put up a slide with some blogs that you can look up later if you're interested in delving more into possessions. Also, devices. So I think there's a lot that we can do on devices. For me personally, I've reduced notifications. So I only get notifications for text messages. I don't have any social media notifications that pop up on my phone. I don't have email notifications, because if it's constantly coming at you, your mind is being split. you're not able to focus completely. Even if you think you can, you're not focusing completely because you're being distracted every 3 seconds when a notification is popping up, popping up, popping up, popping up. So that's one thing I've done. I've decluttered by reducing notifications. Also, you can remove apps that you don't frequently use on your phone. Again, don't just refile. It's kind of like putting stuff in your garage. Actually get rid of those apps that you don't use. Interestingly, I needed to save space on my phone not too long ago, and so I hit the function that said that all the apps that you haven't used within a certain amount of period of time go into the cloud. And so I hit that, and then I looked and I realized how many apps I hadn't really used lately, and they didn't really need to be on my phone. Now, that was recently, and so I still need to get rid of those apps. I'm not speaking as someone who is a perfect minimalist by any means, but using the principle does help us grow in a lot of different areas. Also, your computer. Declutter your computer files if that's an issue for you. That will also, not only will it relieve your computer and give it more ability to function quickly, but it'll take a weight off of you. Take important things and that you don't really use, but they're important, put them in cloud storage or put them on an external hard drive. Like, there's no reason for them to be on your computer, especially your desktop, if you don't need them there. If you don't need to get them more than once a week or once a month, there's no reason it should be on your desktop or your computer. Also, get rid of things that you actually don't need. Sometimes we have duplicates of pictures, like we uploaded it twice. Make sure you delete the duplicates. If you went on a family trip and you took a whole bunch of pictures, and out of 100 pictures, 50 of them are blurry and you'll never print them and you don't care to ever look at them, delete them. It'll feel good. So just things like that. Also, calendar. Make sure you're prioritizing what and who you value most. Don't try to do more if it's just keeping you busy. Busy work is not efficient. It wears you out. Even with traveling is so fun, but there's an extent where it can wear you out if you're doing too much at one time. And yeah, it's fun to go places, but if you're too tired to function during the week because you're traveling every weekend, you have to think about what's important to you. Is it important to you to function well during the week, or do you just live for the weekend? That's something that you have to ask yourself. Also, just be intentional about how your time is used. I think most people have at least once gotten into the trap of scrolling through social media and watching random YouTube videos, things like that. And applying minimalism to your calendar and your time asks you, what do you value and how do you want to use your time wisely? Here's a couple ways that you can make this happen in your life. How can you apply minimalism to your life? First thing I would say is write down why you're doing this, because there's going to be moments that you just get tired and maybe you decided that the first thing you're going to tackle is your closet and you took everything out, and then halfway through you're just like, I don't care anymore, and you just want to go to sleep and forget about it. But when you write down why you are decluttering, why you are applying minimalism, it's going to remind you and give you motivation to keep going. I know that there are some methods where you kind of just like Marie Kondo, where you just go into a room and you hold something. If it sparks joy, you keep it. If it doesn't, you just get rid of it immediately. With step number 2, you start somewhere, but you take it easy. You take it at your own pace. Sometimes if you just kind of go in there and you just start throwing everything away, later on you realize, oh wait, I actually needed that. And then you have to go buy another one, and then you're spending more money. But if you choose a place to start, choose a place that's it may be a place that's more chaotic in your life. It may just be a part that's taking up too much time. And so you write down why you want to declutter that area of your life, and you take it in strides. If it's your closet, you think about, what am I going to need? What events do I have coming up? What am I doing with my life? Where am I going to be? And what do I need in my closet? And everything else can go. But that takes us to number 3. So number 3 is make piles. Oh, someone's drawing on the screen. Look at that. Number 3 is make piles. Something that's been helpful for me is, especially when I did my closet, was that I had a pile of, okay, I'm definitely getting rid of this. I don't need it. I had a pile of, okay, maybe like I like it, but I don't know if I really need it. And then I had a pile of like, yes, I love this. Sometimes there was kind of like a gradient, but mainly those 3 piles. And that really helped me because I was able to say, all right, this is what I love. I'm going to keep this. And then the stuff that was a no, I was able to immediately get rid of that. And then the stuff that was a maybe, I was able to sit down and kind of just like reason through it and tell myself why I didn't need certain things or why certain things might be good to keep. Step 4, remember that things are just things. Don't get caught up with the consumerism mindset and thinking that it's going to be hard to survive without everything that you already have. Remember, you can declutter and be okay. And number 5, don't compare yourself with others. Don't say, well, they're a better minimalist than me and I just might as well give up because I'm not a real minimalist. It's okay. You can apply it to one part of your life at a time. You don't have to do everything at once. Some people do. Some people just want to clean sweep their whole house, and that's great. But don't compare yourself to others because it can get discouraging. And 6, be intentional about what you purchase, because inevitably you're going to continue to buy some things in the rest of your life, and just be intentional about those things. Don't buy the things that are going to clutter your house. Don't buy the things that you kind of like. Only buy things that you love. I know there's been tons of times, example, there's this pair of shoes, pair of heels that I wanted in a specific color, and literally I didn't buy any for 2 years because I did not find the pair that was the right color and the right shape that I felt like I needed for work and things like that. I didn't want to buy something that was going to be a compromise because it wasn't that desperate of a need. If I really needed to, I had another pair of shoes that I could wear. And so this was something that could wait. So just being really intentional about your purchases is very important. Here are some prominent minimalists if you want to further look into minimalism. There's documentaries, they have books, all sorts of things. So these are people you're going to want to look at their blogs and whatnot if you are curious about continuing this minimalist journey and want to get deeper into it, because this is definitely just an overview. And remember, above all, to love people, use things, because the opposite never works. And and that's the conclusion. I hope that that was a helpful intro to most people. And I think that we have a few minutes for questions, Kendra said. Let's see.
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and introduce a few announcements, and then if people have questions, they can start to write them in the chat, and you can stick around and discuss and talk about them and answer them. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right, awesome. We want to thank Savonna for coming on and joining us and teaching us. I seriously rethought all of my life and how much I need to get organized, so thank you. And we have a few things lined up. We will have Growth Labs next Tuesday and Thursday. You guys are the first to know that next week on Tuesday, we will have Jasper back again, teaching on photography. He'll be doing a level up, so part 2. He actually will be building a total of 4-part series. Next Tuesday at 6 o'clock is his second part. And then on Thursday, we'll be having Dr. Nicole Parker. She'll be sharing on relationships with us. And so there'll be time for question and answers as well, and to just interact with her. She'll be sharing. Tomorrow on Friday at 7 o'clock, we'll be having Vespers, and Ivor Myers will be speaking and sharing with us, as well as on Saturday, we'll be having a Q&A panel with a lot of different speakers. You guys can find our information on our Instagram and our Facebook page, and we look forward to seeing more of you guys, so thank you. Savannah, the time is now yours. I made all the announcements that were necessary. Thank you.
Okay, so if anyone has questions, I guess you can unmute yourself and ask the question.
Okay, what happened if I get married and my husband don't wanna, downsizing?
That's actually a super great, interesting question because I found that in some of the minimalists that I was looking into, some of the prominent people, they have significant others who are not minimalists. They're not. So it's, the guy who was talking about, Joshua Becker, his wife is on board. They're in it together. He's a little bit more into it than she is. Like, he's one of those people that only has 33 items of clothing. Some of you may have seen YouTube videos from Matt Diavola. He was the producer and director for the documentary The Minimalists, and so he's a YouTuber and he does a lot of like minimalist stuff on his YouTube, and he's the type of person that literally has 10 t-shirts that are the same color, and he just that's him. He's good with that. He's okay with that. He's not trying to do anything more. But his girlfriend, she's not a minimalist. Like, she has her full closet and things like that. I think one person who's a minimalist, they gave some tips for that, where they said that you just keep a spot. If you're the minimalist, you would keep at least 1 or 2 spots in the house that are like your minimalist spots that are not interrupted by clutter, and that kind of helps you deal. Obviously, when it gets into kids, then it can get a little bit difficult, but love overcomes all, right, Sandy?
You know what? I don't want a tiny house anymore. I want a big house, little less, so you guys can come and stay with me.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thanks, Sandy.
I need your
like that.
What is it? Coronavirus, 10 feet, tiny house not gonna work it. Somebody's gonna come in the coffin and say no. Anyway,
Yeah.
I want a big house. Tell you that right now. It's okay to have a big house. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, I will be sure to come and visit you a lot, Sandy.
That's right. No more tiny house.
No.
No more tiny house. So, well, that's good advice, though. I really like it.
Good. I'm glad that it could bless you. Anyone else have questions?
What is this? Can you go? I know that there was a few questions on the color palette. What does that look like? Where can we find that?
I would just Google it. I could maybe find, like, there's a lot of different websites. You take like a little quiz where you say what your eye color is, your hair color, your skin tone, and then it kind of calculates what your color palette is, and it's based on the 4 seasons. So there's like winter, spring, summer, and fall. So like my color palette is the fall, and all the color palettes include all of the colors in the rainbow, but different tones of those colors. So like for me, I do not own anything that is lime green. 0. I will never own anything that is lime green, ever. I shouldn't say that, but I won't. But I do have things that are forest green, or there's this like green that's in my color palette. It's kind of like foresty, but then like there's a little tinge of like blue. It's interesting, but it's part of the color palette and it works.
Savannah, I have a question.
Yes.
So I got a comment from one of the guys here on this chat, and he said, there's a lot of females on this call. How can the minimalist mindset be applied to a man, to a male?
Oh, tons of ways. So interestingly enough, like that list that I had, most of them are actually guys. I know that, like, I'm a girl, so I kind of put forward the female perspective, but most of them are guys. And honestly, I shouldn't say it's easier for guys, but it could be, depending. I mean, if you're like metro and you have a ton of hair products and whatnot, maybe you have to pare it down a little bit.